Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is WoW Killer. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, joined, as always, by Taliesin. Welcome back. Happy Wednesday, dude. We're back to what was supposed to be our normal day.
Haven't we always done that?
Yes, totally.
I think we've been actually really good. We said it was going to be a weekly show, and apart from our Christmas break, Garrett, it pretty much has, you know.
Yeah.
I think we've done extraordinarily well. I think we should be given credit for that and praise because we deserve it. We've worked very hard.
Hey, you know, I'm proud of it. We both do a lot of stuff, and it's hard to get new projects off the ground to do them consistently once you're juggling a bunch of projects already. I'm really happy with the show. We're starting to get emails, dude. It's feeling like a real podcast. People are emailing.
Wow, we got an email? What did the email say? Was it a bill?
It was not a bill. No.
Okay, good. Well, in that case, awesome, fantastic.
Our first email would have been.
I live for that.
No, you know what? No, it's good because of the way I'm set up. I have no unique bills just for the show as of yet.
Good work.
Good.
Well, you know, you let me know.
We did it.
Yeah, awesome. Now, I'm not asking for praise. Okay, I'm not asking for praise just because we managed to make a podcast every week. I'm not asking for it, but I will accept it if it comes. That's all.
Well, I'm demanding.
I don't want praise for the quality of the show. That's a pile. But like, just for actually getting here every week and actually just saying words and being here, I think is a major achievement. Not something I'm used to. I'll be honest with you.
Well, I
probably won't be here this much for my kid.
I'm looking forward to your WoW stream where you're just bouncing your adorable child on your knee as you continue to try and farm Longboy. It's going to be really fun. It's
gonna be terrific. I can't wait. As long as it plays tank, we're gonna be okay because we need a tank. It needs to be good at tanking and it needs to be good at editing.
I saw that tweet. Yeah. And then you got me thinking. I had never really considered having kids before until you made me realize I could put them to work on content creation.
Bingo.
Yeah,
and when they're not doing that, they can farm gold. Kids love farming gold. You put them on a mount, you tell them to fly around picking herbs, they're going to do that. They're going to think that's a good time.
So when have
you seen their TV shows? They're idiotic. You put them on a mount, tell them to go farm some stuff, they're going to be down with that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So to my parents, when you finally have a grandchild, you have Taliesin to thank.
I think that's definitely okay. Like, just bringing up my grandchildren now is okay. I'm not a young man, but that's definitely learning. Like, that's running before we can walk.
No, I was talking about my parents.
Oh, okay.
They have you to thank for really pitching children as child labor. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's not really child labor because I mean they are technically children doing labor, but it's not like they're not getting paid. They get meals and a house under my roof, etc.
They do. Your house, your rules. I really want
to be a proper old-fashioned dad, but not just an old-fashioned dad. I want to be one of those really aggressive, like American dads. You know, those ones who wear like T-shirts that say stuff like "rules for dating my daughter." Like 1, I am watching you.
You're gonna be one of those.
2, anything you do to her, I do to you. And it's like, are you sure, Pops? Are you sure? Sure you want to do that? But like those super aggressive American T-shirts, I love them. They're my favorite thing. And it's basically the reason that we're having a child.
Just because you want to wear really bad sayings on your T-shirts as a father.
Yeah, I want to totally. And it's like, yeah, you know, you hurt her, I hurt you. You must have a job and a gun.
Taliesin should really get into bumper stickers. I think you've missed your calling as the purveyor of fantabulous bumper stickers.
Do you know what? I would love to have all kinds of bumper stickers like that. But the thing is, Garrett, I haven't got a car and I can't drive. And you have to pass a test to be able to drive. They don't give you a test to have a child.
What do you think? What bad dad T-shirt do you think Thrall wears? That's what I'm curious about. Yeah, he gets up in the morning, pulls out his dresser drawer. What terrible dad shirt does he? It's definitely not #1 shaman because he's kind of coming up short totally. in that regard.
Do we know what Thrall's baby even was in the end? That's a lore thing that I missed.
Me too. I'm totally useless here. Is Novel in the chat room? Can Novel inform us what Thrall's child
Someone
was?
In the chat will know. What was Thrall's kid?
Do we ever meet Thrall's child?
Thrall's kid is hiding with Thrall's wife at the moment.
Yeah,
you know when Safan comes along in the Lost Honor cinematic, or whichever one it is, in the fields of like shit wheat, and he's like, "Where's the family?" And Thrall's all like, "Not here, mate." I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he ate them because his wheat didn't work out.
You mean the field?
Maybe they actually are in hiding. But either way, he's got a family with at least one child, and I don't know what small.
You mean the field of wheat that was lifted directly from Gladiator? The only time World of Warcraft has ever paid homage to an existing piece of fiction?
They wouldn't do that.
No, they wouldn't.
Don't be silly.
No, it's the only time.
It wasn't trying to purposely evoke like a famous image from another source of media. I think the word you're looking for is plagiarism.
Yeah, because that's the only time. I was so mad that they so blatantly lifted from Gladiator.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm over it now, though, because I'm just thinking about Thor's family and where they are and what they're doing.
I distinctly remember when Sourfang showed up, I'm like, oh, we're going to see like a badass, like wonderfully rendered version of Agra. And then she didn't show up. And I'm like, oh, of course. The fact that we got a Thrall, which is a unique model that was not part of the BFA cinematic, was honestly impressive enough. It
was very expensive, Garrett.
Yes.
Because also, don't forget, he's essentially two models in one. He is so wide.
He's got he's built like a StarCraft Marine.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to wear a suit. That's just his body.
That's what happens when you lose your shaman powers and you have to do all your lifting yourself. No wind elementals to help now, Frawley baby.
Well, in the long history
cut that tree down yourself.
In the long history of Warcraft, lifting directly from other films, I cannot wait for the.
What are you talking about, Garrett? I have no idea what. I'm so confused by all of this.
I'm just saying, I can't wait for them. I can't wait for the Thrall CrossFit scene lifted directly from Batman v Superman. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, now you made me think of Batman v Superman. That's that day ruined. Thanks. I was having a good one. Do you know what? I've spent the entire morning doing my actual taxes, and you making me think of that movie is the worst thing that's happened today.
That's okay. Ooh, throwing some shade at a movie I hate. So, anyways, God, that was a beginning to the show. We are here today.
The thing I love about this show, and the reason I think the show is so successful, Garrett, is that we're so damn focused. You know, it takes a lot to throw us off our stride once we're going. Look at this show. We literally haven't even started yet.
And we've already talked about Bad Dad t-shirts, Thrall's child that we don't know anything about it, and the CrossFit Batman v Superman, but Thrall doing it. He would be turning he'd be lifting and turning over a wheel off a meat wagon, by the way, instead of a tire. That's what he'd be doing.
So is this show all about Thrall, Garrett? Is that what's happening? Are we talking about Thrall now? Because I'm not going to lie, I'm spent on Thrall. I'm not sure I've got anything else.
Oh, I've got no. No. It's gonna be a pretty slow month when we do a Thrall episode. Not one of my favorite Warcraft characters. Not one of them. He's right up there with Anduin with you're a Boy Scout and I'm bored.
Okay.
But today we figured there's a lot of raiding on everyone's minds, most likely, unless you're, like a hardcore PvP player or I don't know, like a hardcore fisher in World of Warcraft. Maybe you're really into something that isn't raiding, but I think for a lot of us, we're very into raiding. It's on my mind. It's definitely on your mind since you're now in the race to world first for raid groups with a name a bit like Immortalis.
Absolutely, and it's an intense race. There are new contenders in the race this year as well, so it's incredibly intense.
Yeah,
we'll get onto that maybe in a little bit.
Yeah, but today we're gonna do some story time with Taliesin and Garrett. We're gonna talk about our history with raiding. We're gonna get back to our roots of a show that's only had 6 episodes, but we started the show with talking about our history with World of Warcraft. Today we're gonna laser focus in on our history with raiding. Now. We could go in either direction. Would you like to go first, Taliesin, or would you like to go in a more chronological order of World of Warcraft?
Well, first of all, I just want to preface by saying that, and just clarifying sort of where I stand on raiding in WoW in general. I, like many of you, and maybe even you, Garrett, and this is something that we talked about on the channel before, so I'm not going to dwell on it, but like most people, I started playing WoW essentially as a one-player game. I started playing back in Wrath of the Lich King. I had no kind of concept of the multiplayer elements of World of Warcraft at all. I came off the back of playing games like Oblivion, single player RPGs, and a combination of not having an Xbox or PlayStation near me at the time, and a vague kind of idea in my head that Oblivion would be really awesome if there were other like human players in the game as well, made me take up World of Warcraft one day. And I approached it in the same way. So I took leveling very slowly. I, mucked around at sort of level 18 for months, probably just kind of pickpocketing people and things like that. That's what I enjoyed doing in Oblivion. And never really dawned on me that multiplayer was a thing at all until I started learning a bit more about the game and I started reading about it months and months into my WoW career. And that's when you start seeing YouTube videos of like, boss kills in raids and things, which were fascinating to me. These huge teams of players and all these spell effects going off in much higher, quality and frame rate that I was used to seeing on my terrible computer that I played on. And that was incredibly magical to me. And kind of paired with that first moment that you always remember when you're playing WoW, when you're walking in Elwyn Forest or something, and then you see a max level player go riding by on a horse in like amazing gear and stuff like that. You go, oh wow, okay, there's this whole other part of the game I didn't know about. And I always looked it up to it as this thing of something I would probably never do because I didn't have the time to play WoW as much as all that. It struck me as an incredibly hardcore thing. I was very aware of how slow my leveling was in WoW and how long it was going to take me to get to max level. As it happens, I didn't get to max level until Mists of Pandaria. Having started playing in Wrath of the Lich King. So I was right about that. But still, like, it existed as this kind of magical thing that really, really appealed to me because it was a type of gameplay that I'd never experienced in any video game either. A kind of cooperative, large-scale multiplayer kind of event, which was like just that whole idea was fascinating to me. And I know there's a lot of talk these days about LFR and the role of LFR and whether it's good or bad for the game. And one of the main arguments always seems to be against LFR, that it means people don't go into proper raiding. Because why would you when you can see the whole raid and experience it by jumping into LFR? I was different from that. I would never have... I had kind of accepted in my head that I was never going to be part of a raid group or a raid team or anything like that because I didn't take the game seriously enough. Fascinating though I found the idea, I knew it was a jump I would probably never take until, and I'll tell the whole story a little bit later on, but until I had like LFR experiences in Mr. Pandaria, and that gave me the confidence then to kind of seek out actual raiding guilds and join teams and actually experience raiding properly. So for me, I'm sure like for many people, maybe they're right. And LFR does discourage people from doing proper raiding. But in my case, it was the opposite. In my case, it gave me the confidence and the drive and the inclination to go and seek out proper raiding. And now I'm a world first raider for guilds with a name a bit like Immortalis.
Nice.
So,
there it is.
And I still see raiding as the absolute pinnacle of the game. And I still see raiding as the thing that everyone should aim for in the game because it's what I find the most fun about the game. It's what I think is the most unique thing about the game. I think it's the hardest thing to do because you have like the difficulty of the organization and being there at the same time as everyone else on top of the actual gameplay. And the preparation that you have to do on your character to even like qualify to go into a raid and survive there. So when there are conversations about, should the best gear in game only be obtainable through raid? Should it be available to everyone? I'm like absolutely in the camp where 100% the best gear in the game should be in raid. The most unique stuff should be in raid. As in terms of power level, the most rewarding stuff should be awarded from raids, in my opinion. And I say that as someone who has spent most of their WoW life not raiding and thinking that I never would raid. And I was still happy with that. I think it's good to have that kind of thing to aim for.
Yeah, it's funny you talking about kind of learning about raids significantly beforehand, although it sounds like for you it was seeing videos. For me, I was playing original vanilla World of Warcraft and leveling abysmally slow because I was a terrible hunter, and you can hear all about that on our very first episode where I inform you of things like I didn't know I could train my pet until level 42.
I love noob stories. I particularly love hunter noob stories. I'm going to go and re-listen to that episode. I'm going to go and re-listen to that episode.
Yeah, but as I was leveling at a glacial pace in vanilla World of Warcraft, you know, I was spending a lot of time hanging out in Stormwind, and a bloody severed head of Onyxia would just show up on chains sometimes. I'd be like, what the hell? What? This wasn't here yesterday. Why is this here now? It just kind of blew my mind. And then I heard people, you know, looking for group, you know, the whole LF 39 man for MC. Just be like, what is all that? What is Sholo? Which is a dungeon, not a raid. I'm very aware of that. Yeah. But I remember Scholomance, people looking for groups all the time for that. And just, you know, getting this in-game sense of what the end game was through the community of like in-game itself, like hearing these stories and kind of piecing together how this game worked because of people that were looking for groups. And then eventually people talking in the guild about putting together a raid group. And then I was very much like you. I'm like, oh my God, this sounds awesome, but also kind of impenetrable. Like I'm level 30, like I'm literally halfway there. And it took me 3 months to get here. How the hell am I ever going to reach 60 and actually get into this raid? And I ended up not. I didn't hit max level in vanilla World of Warcraft. I think I made it in, originally I thought I made it into like the mid 40s, but then after I started playing Classic again, I'm like, oh yeah, Winter Spring is like a pretty late level zone, and that's where I remember kind of crapping out. So I definitely made it further than I thought. So I don't remember what the hell level I was, but whatever level I was when I took my first break before BC, it was in Winter Spring. So yeah, it's I found it really fascinating. It was this kind of unachievable thing for me for quite a while. And so for me, my rating history, that's honestly where it starts for me, is hearing the stories, but in game from other players, kind of talking about, like watching our guild chat and people being like, oh man, can you believe what happened in MC last night? Or let's get some people together and go kill Onyxia or whatever it is. And I just found it fascinating. I was pining after dungeon and raid sets because I just thought they were the coolest damn looking things I had ever seen in a video game. I wanted to look as cool as that paladin that just parked his butt outside of the auction house to look rad. Even though I was a hunter, that couldn't have happened. Although I probably would have ninja looted their gear because I was an idiot on accident. But yeah, my raiding story I didn't start raiding until Burning Crusade. I eventually got to max level and joined a group to go into one of the smaller raids. I started raiding in Karazhan. And let me tell you, Taliesin, I got a soft spot in my heart for Karazhan. I hear that
I've never heard you say so, Garrett.
Oh, I hear that cheesy parlor music, and it just brings me back to a simpler time, a much, much simpler time. It's where my roommate would sneak up behind me because I had my back to my door in my bedroom and scare the shit out of me while I was raiding Karazhan. Eventually mounted a mirror on the side of my monitor because they knew on raid night they could screw with me. But yeah, oh my God, I love Karazhan so much. And I actually got like 4 real life friends together to do the return to Karazhan in Legion. And therefore that is my favorite part about Legion as well, was going back to Karazhan. But it was just crazy. I was so happy to be in there. And I also like the theme of Karazhan at the time. It was like such a wild departure from Burning Crusade, because we're out in orc space with, you know, planets above our head, and suddenly we're back in mainland Azeroth, and we're in like a mage tower. Like,
can you remember what the in-game reason for sending you there at that time was?
Prince Malchezaar Prince Malchezaar was trying to enter through Karazhan. I don't remember why. but that was Malchezaar was the big end boss at the end there. I couldn't tell you the deeper meaning as to why, but it's like, I don't know. There was a Legion Eridar trying to get through into, I guess that would have been Eastern Kingdoms. And I don't remember why, but yeah, there's just a big Eridar. Like I was a hunter, and I was just trying to get my Sun Fury bow. That's all I knew. I just really wanted my Sun Fury bow, and to complete my, what would have been, tier 4? Yeah, because tier 3 capped out the end of vanilla, and tier 4, which was Demon Stalker, which is still one of my favorite tier sets in the game, even though it's like this weird brown color.
Yeah,
I love the glowy fish shoulders. They're so good looking. It's so great, man.
That's something we miss by having, just male sets in BFA rather than class specific sets. Is you don't get that cool. Well, the hunter, obviously, their armor set is just made out of animals, dead animals that they've killed. That was always my favorite thing about hunter sets. Was like, what animal have they killed to make this set that basically has its head?
Oh, and at the end,
as their shoulder piece.
At the end of Beast, well, I guess it wasn't technically the end because we also got sets out of Sunwell that looked very blood elfy, but the tier 6, the Gronstalker with the friggin' eyeballs that moved around, that was the best. That was so good. Don't get me off on a tangent about how what everyone's got their thing about BFA that they think is like the biggest failure in the history of World of Warcraft, and for me it's like the death of tier sets. Like that is a World of Warcraft trigger for me.
I didn't think I minded until I realized that you can't. Gone are the days of hunter sets made out of dead things, and that's a real shame to me.
It's unfortunate, yeah. And also gone are the days of truly righteous paladin sets.
Yeah.
How many?
It never really made sense anyway because like they wear males armor, so I mean, they should be leather wearers really. But yeah, you're right, and the truly righteous paladin. Although I think most plate sets are kind of geared up towards that look anyway.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I just want to see how many books we can fit onto our armor as a paladin again. That's I missed that. Yeah, actually, technically, my first raid experience was going to Magtheridon's lair, like as a pickup. Like they needed one extra person because I wasn't part of the regular. We were still 40 man back then. Really? Right? Yes. God, my memory is shite for all of this. But they just needed some extra people, so we went in. And it was my first time with like the big raid with my guild that I had been in since vanilla. And I had never been in there. So there were like people in there I did not know, had never had a run-in with my guild. And one of them was the raid leader. And this person, English was not their first language. I could not understand a thing they were saying. They were directing the raid and I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And but it still worked. And I remember the freaking Hellraiser cubes around the room, just thinking that was the coolest like mechanic I'd ever seen in a boss fight. And also it was just really cool to see like a storyline that I had noticed in a dungeon get picked up and finished, because you were running around Hellfire Citadel and Magtheridon's yelling to choke on his blood the whole time you're in there, as when you're like just starting off Burning Crusade, when you're just out there in Hellfire. And so that was really rad too. But Karazhan was the first one where it's like I had a regular group. We had a time and a day, and we met every day at that time and went in and knocked it out. And then that was really kind of it, because I didn't get into a regular 40-man. I did a bunch of pickups for Serpent Shrine and Black Temple, but I never beat either. I think I got like maybe 7 bosses deep into both of them because I was just kind of an alternate slot. So, but it bit me hard. And I got.
What was the first raid that you were there to complete?
Well, that would have been Karazhan, technically. But like the first, like when we got rid of the split of like, here's the 40-man, here's the 10-man, and then eventually we got to Nax in Nax and Lich King, and you could just do a 10-man regular, right? Then I completed every raid in Lich King. If you can't tell by now, whenever we talk about our WoW history on this show, I went hard in Wrath of the Lich King. I went real hard. I did everything. And Next, Wrath of the Lich King is interesting because I have not only the most raid stories, but I also have my biggest raid drama in Wrath of the Lich King.
No way.
The reason
but wasn't it like, surely the way you've described it before, like your Wrath of the Lich King experience just sounds like one happy unicorn filled like stomp to Arthas and ultimate personal and gaming completion.
I mean, yes, but that was after I finally decided to just leave my guild and my faction.
Always a tricky thing, and this is something that I feel as well, like, because it's the same with my stories. The story of I love how the story of your raiding and like your own personal experience of raiding is by definition kind of directly tied to the story of your progression through various different guilds in WoW as well, because of course it is. And I love how the two things are fused and intertwined, and one can have a huge impact on the other. And it's such an important part of how you experience an expansion, which is why when people tell me that they enjoyed Kata more than Mists or something, I believe them, because, it can be such a sort of personal thing.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised.
I still think they're idiots, but I believe them.
I wouldn't be surprised if most people, if like the first expansion you rated in is your favorite one.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not Burning Crusade for me. I do really like Burning Crusade, and whenever they inevitably announce Burning Crusade Classic, I am here for it. And really, it's just because I want them to just get to Wrath of the Lich King Classic, so I can just go live in a bubble of my memories, and then realize maybe it wasn't as good as I remember and be disappointed. Probably not, because I just really just want to go do Wintergrasp again. But yeah, when I got into Wrath of the Lich King, I stayed on Alliance. I still stuck with my original freaking Night Elf Hunter. Got him to max. Started raiding next Ramus on the regular. But at the end of BC, I had my first serious alt, which was a warrior. Because I was fascinated by tanking, and I was obsessed with dungeon running, and I was really sick of A, not being able to find a tank, and B, getting bad tanks. And so I had our main tank for our Alliance raid. He took me under his wing and taught me how to warrior tank. And I thought it was the coolest shit I'd ever done in a video game. I felt like an awesome badass. Like, you mean to tell me that I get to set the pace of this fight? I get to decide where the boss stands? I get to murder everybody when I mess up? Yes! I like that. I became power hungry. And that followed me into Wrath of the Lich King. So, but I stuck with the Hunter because it wasn't a tank spot in my raid. But in the back of my mind, I just really wanted the tank Taliesin, and I cannot explain to you how badly I wanted the tank. And so, I started main tanking in the alt raid for our guild. And it wasn't an alt raid. Actually, that's a bad thing to call it. You know how there's like an A squad Taliesin, and there's like a B squad.
I wouldn't know anything about the B squad, but I hear, yeah.
So I didn't realize it at this time, but I had been given the honor of main tanking for like the G squad. I figured it out pretty quickly though, pretty damn quickly, because. But
you maintained your G spot pretty well, did you?
Oh yeah. I very, very, very good manipulation of my G spot. Yeah, did a great job. Boy, that was some low hanging fruit, Taliesin.
Your G spot is low hanging.
You can't do this.
You can't do it. You can't find it or talk about. I don't understand.
I lost it when we got to Hygen. And we wiped like 15 times on a boss that the majority of the raid had already completed in another group. This group was mostly alts and like 3 people that weren't allowed into any other raid groups because they were bad. And I distinctly remember just one night, this is our second like raid night in a row of not being able to clear Hygen, and we're all just like literally hands in our faces in our hands, just distraught, trying to explain to one person in particular how to like not F up the Hygen dance, and this person reveals that they keyboard turn. and
Oh,
I that was that sowed the final seed of I'm going to leave because, well, long story short,
wait, hang on. This is brilliant. Can we just establish you left your guild because they were noobs
yes.
and you thought you were better than them?
Oh, I figured out something very important about myself that day, Taliesin. I found out
I'm learning something very important about you this day as well.
I found out that I don't want to raid if everyone's not at least pretty close in desire for progression.
I think that's very fair.
It's not about noobs or not noobs. It's like I just wherever I am, I need to be on the same like mental level as I need my expectation needs to align with
people playing together. You've got to have the same reason for doing it. Yeah.
Yes. I need expectations to align because I am now a very casual raider. I, however, do not keyboard turn. You evil people. Evil. The next Manson family will be a group of keyboard turners. I'm telling you right now.
No, please don't think that Garrett keyboard turns everyone. It's thumb on the trackpad, isn't it?
It's clearly a thumb on a
thumb on the trackpad.
Now I use one of those. You do it with
a stose.
I use one of those ball mount or ball mice from the 90s. I use one of those ball mice where you just roll the ball around. Those things. What the hell? Anyways, the long story short, I asked the leader of the guild, not the raid leader, but the guild leader, because they kind of had the final say on things, if I could be given the power to remove someone from the raid team. And they told me no. And so I was like, I'm out. And I left. And a couple of my friends in my
wait, hang on. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but I keep thinking of really awesome things that you should have said at the time, which is like, can I remove someone from the raid team? No, Garrett, you don't have that power. Oh yeah, we'll see about that, because this dude is leaving. I just removed this. Hi, it's me again. I'm back. I just removed this guy from the raid team. You were wrong.
I'm sure.
How's that?
Yeah, I didn't say anything. I just left. I just silently left.
Did you leave in secret? Did you at least wait until the nighttime so no one saw, or did you leave?
Well, no, because I just switched to a different character. I just never logged in again. I found, and I would like to, for my own defense of character, the majority of the team was on the same page. They were just like, can we please kick this person off and bring someone else in, because we've got some new recruits that don't keyboard turn. And I'd clearly been put in place of babysitting the problematic players to keep them like quiet, and I didn't like being in that position. And so when I found out that one of my friends in my digital illustration class, when I was in art school, was in dire need of a tank for their Horde raid team, I was like, ooh, I've really been wanting a Blood Elf Paladin, and I have one that's damn near max level. I'm out. So then that's when I swapped to Horde. And yeah, they ran my butt through. They got me geared real fast, because this is Ulduar had just come out, and they had their tank like stopped playing. I think their tank was like getting their PhD or something, and just out, gone. And they're like, shit, Ulduar just came out. And so I have never been power geared faster in my life, because they were just like, all right, Garrett's here. He can make the knights. Let's just get him geared. So they just ran my ass through an Axaramus super freaking fast. They even ran my ass through, was it heroic back then? What the hell? I don't even remember the term back then, but I went through the higher difficulty. I got the Undying freaking title just for shits. And then before I knew it, bam, we were like progressing. We were progression running Ulduar. And it's the most fun I have ever had in this game. Was at the time, I think I was off tanking. I was off tanking for Ulduar. And then TOC came out, and that was an absolute blast. Ulduar blew my mind. Like, still to this day, I think that's my favorite raid. And everyone's always surprised when I say that, because like, Garrett, that's Wrath of the Lich King. You're an Arthas fanboy. I'm like, it's just Ulduar. It was such a well designed raid.
It's still generally considered as being the best, isn't it, by aficionados? It's like the Citizen Kane of WoW raids. It's like automatically top spot. If someone asked me what was the best raid in WoW, I never went in Ulduar when it was current, but I'd probably go, yeah, Ulduar. You know, I never played it.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I saw Citizen Kane, I thought it's all right. I still say it's like the best movie ever made.
I was about to say I take issue with that because Citizen Kane is the thing that you understand the importance of, but you don't really need to watch it.
Yeah, like Birth of a Nation. Never watch that movie. Don't watch Birth of a Nation. That's a horrible, horrible movie. No one ever needs to see that movie. We can all appreciate like how important that movie was without ever having to go near it. Like RuneScape.
But I would argue that like if you could go experience Ulduar at level, I think it's fun as hell. I still think it holds up. I still think it's a good raid with really fantastic fights. I don't have a strong opinion about a raid that's been better since. There's probably multiple raids in Legion I think you could argue were better. And I know some folks that would really go to bat for Firelands. A lot of friends who are big Firelands fans.
Really?
Yeah, I missed that one. But Ulduar, that's where that's like the good old days for me. That's that's like looking back on my varsity football career. That's Ulduar for me. So you again, we're still not up to you because you didn't start playing till Pandaria, right?
Well, no, I didn't start raiding till Pandaria.
Oh, okay.
Because I was playing through Wrath, and like I said, I was playing it in my very, very noobish way, and I'd actually kind of closed the door on World of Warcraft a little bit. Once Cataclysm came out, I was really into my acting career then, and I was traveling around a lot, and I had no laptop, so you know, I tried when Cataclysm released, transporting my desktop with me to my digs in like other cities and stuff in a big box with like all my other stuff. And like I'd get into digs and I'd wherever I was staying, whether that be a hotel or sometimes just a room in a house, you know, like renting, and I'd set up my desktop. And there's never a desk in any of these rooms, so it was quite often on like the chest of drawers that would be by the bed or something. I'd sit on the end of the bed with a like monitor and stuff like on the chest of drawers, and then I'd run an Ethernet cable down to wherever their router was, and like try and stuff it into the carpet down the stairs and stuff as much as possible, so no one died as a guest in this house, you know. And that just got to me in the end. Like I stopped playing. No real kind of reflection on Cataclysm, although I didn't love it. But that's when I stopped playing. And once you stop playing, you often think, well, that's me done with WoW now. I will move on to other things. And it was a good run. I had a really good time, good game. The whole kind of coming back and trying to rubbish a game that you didn't play anymore thing wasn't so big at the time. So it never really occurred to me to keep up with WoW news or kind of events or forums or anything like that. And I saw an advert for Mists of Pandaria, I guess, when it released. My time frame in my mind is pretty hazy here. And like most people, I'd just seen Kung Fu Panda. And so when I saw the advert for Mists of Pandaria, I went, huh, that's dumb. And thought nothing more of it. And
thought then, weird flex, but okay.
Yeah. And then in 2012, I met Evertel, famously. And she was playing WoW. She was playing Miss. She got into it in Qatar when she was studying abroad, and again played it completely as a single player game, but did enjoy a bit of the old LFR once she got to max level. And she bought me a laptop for Christmas that year. We met in August, and at Christmas she bought me a laptop, and we started leveling characters on our US accounts. Because I'd started playing in the US as well. So I'd always played on the US. Obviously, she played on the US. And yeah, we leveled together through Mists. And Mists was well into its final patch at that point. Siege of Orgrimmar was an incredibly long patch. Went on for well over a year, like 13, 14 months in the end. And so we had plenty of time to catch up. She got a nice mount for Recruit a Friend. That was nice for her. And we went through it all. And then when we got to max level, she was like, have you ever done raiding? I was like, oh, I heard about it. I heard about it. And I've always kind of fancied it and always quite liked the idea. But no, it's not something I ever did. I never even got to max level before now, Evertel. Truth be told, it probably only really happened now because, you know, we get 300% experience boost for being recruit a friend. Let's be honest. And she was like, okay, well, I got a little treat for you. And we queued for LFR together. And yeah, it was LFR, but for me, it was my first foray into that magic world that I'd only kind of looked longingly at, kind of when I've been playing WoW the first time, and kind of had accepted that I would never enter because LFR didn't exist back then. So, you know, it was very much kind of connected to joining a team and being social, which is something I had absolutely no desire to do in the game at all. It's not why I was playing. It was purely a single player experience for me, and that's how I liked it. And going into LFR was incredibly eye-opening, and it was super fun to be in a space with all of those people, with all their spell effects going off, breaking my terrible, terrible laptop with its like 2 megs of RAM, and getting the loot and stuff, and having things that genuinely really killed you while you were in there was very new to me as well. Mr. Pandaria LFR was tricky. You know, like a lot of bosses in Mr. Pandaria LFR had one or more mechanics which would wipe you if you didn't do them, which is not something that really exists in LFR anymore. You know, it is
unless you walk into Wing 1 of Ny'alotha and you have to coordinate with other players to find the thing you're supposed to attack.
Oh, I haven't been in there yet, but they have actually done that, have they?
Oh,
I thought certain that they wouldn't bother with that.
Oh, I did too. And they did. They bothered with that.
Awesome.
This is why
I'm glad. So what, you have to be on comms or something to do that, I guess?
The way our group decided to do it was mark both tanks and wait until they're both smacking the same thing. And it worked. It worked. We got on our second try.
Awesome.
The best raid finder experience you're going to get is always the first week that it releases.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go in there, and I'm definitely not going to now. But yeah, you had the big dragon in Mists that the floor disappeared and everyone would fall to their deaths every single time.
Yep.
Yeah, like genuine mechanics. Nazgrim was a big one that people used to die on. And yeah, it was genuine like danger in that LFR, and you did have to coordinate and get it done. So that was, you know, eye-opening, and it gave me a taste doing that with Evertel. It really made me want more. And that's when I decided, okay, fine, right? Well, LFR is one thing, but you know, we're at the end of the expansion now. Everyone is kind of overgearing. Oh, and that's when I switched to Discipline Priest as well, because I was a priest anyway. Because, you know, I thought it'd be fun to kind of heal Evertel as we leveled up together, and went into little dungeons and stuff. And it proved, you know, really good because it meant our dungeon queues were instant and things like that when we were leveling, which is really cool. And it meant that our LFR queues were a lot quicker as well when we queued together, because I was a healer as well. So she was very happy about that. But of course, Discipline Priest was incredibly OP towards the end of Mr. Pandaria. As at the time, there's a few expansions back there when Discipline Priest would automatically be OP at the end of an expansion because its healing was based entirely on absorbs. So the way that gear and abilities and secondaries used to scale, it meant that by the end of the expansion, like you only needed a Discipline Priest. You didn't need anything else. And at the time, I was watching a lot of videos, you know, about the raids because I had like a vague inkling that I wanted to take it a bit more seriously. And it was all like wall-to-wall guides of how Discipline Priests would do the top damage and healing in LFR. And you would, and I was terrible, and I'd go in there and I'd be doing top damage and top healing in LFR, in Mists as Discipline Priest. So that's when I swapped over, just because it was completely OP. And I thought, cool. Well, now I'm playing this super OP class. This would be a good time to start looking for, you know, a proper team to raid with. Now, the problem was that I was an EU player playing on an NA account from Europe.
Oh, that's
so
right.
So our time zones were completely
you started playing
all
on
over
an
the
NA
place.
account. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, yeah. So I was dealing with quite a lot of ping, which is probably why I'm such an awesome player now, is because I learned under such difficult circumstances. But
My buddy used to raid exclusively with a group of Europeans because the only time that worked for him was like crack of dawn US.
wow,
So he could get the raid out of the way and then get work done.
that's nuts. I love that. I quite like that. Yeah, when I've got raid in the evening, I'm always thinking about it all day because I look forward to it so much. So it does kind of hinder my work.
I got into a really big fight with a manager of mine while I was raiding ICC because they found out the reason I didn't work Saturday or Friday nights was because of a raid in WoW. They're like, that's not a reason.
Awesome.
I'm like, F you. Yes, it is.
I've had similar experiences, which we'll get to. But yeah, so I joined this guild, which used to raid at I guess it was like dinner time, sort of their time. That was the earliest raiding guild I could find on NA servers. But it meant I had to get up at 1 a.m. to raid. And it meant that raids didn't finish until 3 or 4 a.m. And I was living in a shared house at the time. I had roommates and stuff. And and also Evertel was living in my room at that time as well. She'd moved in. So I couldn't disturb her, so I couldn't play in my own room. So I had to take the laptop out into the living room of this shared house, put my headphones on, and very quietly talk on comms when we were raiding, which everyone in this guild found absolutely hilarious because, of course, I had this accent. And everyone else in this guild, and this isn't even a joke, was either a soldier on kind of tour or something. So they also had strange hours. So they were either literally in foreign countries, sort of, doing their soldiery stuff, or they were old ladies. This was a guild of old ladies, and I wish I could remember what the guild was called. It was on Staghelm, NA, which is, again, a very quiet server. It's just the one that Evertel had chosen randomly when she started, so that's where we leveled up. But yeah, and so it was all these old women, which was amazing. It was like the best, most friendly raid experience you could possibly have. No one cared if I was doing any healing. No one cared if we killed the bosses. There was a vague kind of sense of taking it seriously so we could do it. But everyone had already kind of done the raids anyway because they'd been out for so long. And every 5 minutes, the tank had to go and let her cat out and stuff like that. And, we'd talk about Columbo and Murder, She Wrote and their dentures and and their grandkids. And it was amazing. It was such a beautiful experience. It was so homely and nice. And then they'd all laugh at me because I had an English accent and say stuff like "shine your shoes, governor." And they were all from sort of like the Midwest.
What was that? Was that a phrase you said frequently in raids?
No, never at all. Never at all. But it became like my catchphrase. They were like, so the first time I talked in chat after I kind of joined this little team, they were like, "Oh, are you Australian?" I was like, "No." Where are you from?
And then they went to Scotland.
I'm from England, and because I thought I'm not gonna take a stab at Wales. If I say I'm from Wales, we're gonna be here all day. So I was like, no, I'm from England, and they were like, oh, that's so great, like Dick Van Dyke. And I was like, he wasn't from England. And yeah, shine your shoes, governor. I was like, but they were such lovely people that it was all good. But to be perfectly honest, I could quite happily be in that guild to this day. But it was the getting up at 1 a.m. and going to bed at like 4 that really killed me. So I got to the stage where I was like, okay, well, I can't continue this. This was the only raid team that I could find in the in NA. And I tried, that's when flex raiding started happening as well, was around Siege of Orgrimmar. That's when they introduced flex raiding. So you had, there's like a website called Flex Raid, I think, where you go and you could join flex raids there. And it was always, doing Gary. Join for Gary.
I led a surprisingly successful ICC flex raid on Alliance. No
way.
Like just because
oh, is that when it was introduced, flex raiding? Then I for some reason I thought
it was not that, but sorry, I just thought of like as a pickup raid.
Oh,
my
right.
bad. Yeah, no, that like because we were basically at it on farm horde side, and a buddy of mine came back and was playing where I originally was playing on the Alliance, so I went over and spun up a second paladin over over on my original server, and started just running pickup groups through ICC. It went really well. This is the only time I've ever really done that, like where it wasn't like old content or just joining an LFR or something. But yeah, oh, that's why
I enjoyed the experience, and it was great. And we didn't defeat Siege of Orgrimmar. I didn't even get to Garrosh. That was another thing that I only ever watched on videos and stuff because my team were noobs. I did it on LFR, but I never did it in normal. And normal was like this huge step up for me. I joined like a normal pug once and got kicked instantly because I was so terrible and not doing it right.
I had played.
And I wiped the raid.
I took a pretty big break in Cataclysm. Like I didn't come back for it after we took our break post Arthas at the end of Wrath of the Lich King. I came back and started playing Cata, but I didn't come back for raiding. It was just it was very hard for me at the time. I was living in Los Angeles making no money and paying a mortgage's worth of rent. So I kind of and then I took a bit of a break. But I did a ton of Dragon Soul through LFR at the end. I came back really hard at the end. I think that was around the time Randy left the instance, which is a weird thing that I remember as a moment in WoW history for me. But yeah, then I remember Pandaria coming out and thinking to myself, I'm not going to LFR. LFR is fake rating. I'm gonna put a group together. And that was around the time we had we were pretty far into doing our first podcast. We did a StarCraft podcast back then, and we had just started doing the Angry Chicken. I was like, we're gonna start a podcast guild, and we're gonna start raiding in Mists of Pandaria. And it didn't go very well. We made it like 5 bosses deep. Because we were like, we're gonna keep it open and casual, and I guess by that standard it was successful. But I once again relearned that I don't enjoy raids if we're not real. Like the goal isn't to freaking beat it.
I mean, I found that frustrating as well, but I think it was a combination of being so excited that I was actually in a proper raid after all this time. And being on comms, I'd never spoken to anyone on comms on like the computer before that I'd never met and I wasn't playing with, or that I had met for that matter. And that was like a magical experience for me as well, going into like Ventrilo and talking with people there. And that kind of that distant voice from the other side of the world kind of talking to you in this weird accent and saying, shine your shoes, governor. Like that was, and a combination of that and the fact that I was probably like a little bit, so I mean, I might well have been hallucinating a little bit because it was so late at night and I was so tired. That kind of thing of a mixture of doing this exciting thing for the first time and also being devastatingly tired and not being able to concentrate. I think that kind of, like taking a strong aspirin or something, it kind of just numbed me a little bit to the fact that we weren't making any progress or doing anything. I was just happy to be there, and also not happy because it was 3 a.m. in the morning. And so when Warlords of Draenor launched, and was really fun at the beginning, people forget, but when that launched, I leveled up my character to 100. It was then, and I was like, okay, I'm max level. What I really want to do now is I want to go into high more. And I did it in LFR. And I just got a new PC. I bought my first gaming PC at the time as well. So I was going into LFR and I was seeing, like spell effects for the first time. I was seeing things move more than 20 frames per second for the first time. It was a magical experience for me. And I thought, wow, this is what I want to do. This is great. And also my gameplay was much better as a result. I was actually like much better as a player because of all of that, because I could see what was going on. It's amazing how that makes a difference. And I thought, okay, I want to do this more seriously. I want to do this raiding thing properly. And I can't do that by being on an A server. So I made the single biggest decision that I think you can ever possibly make as a WoW player, which was to leave my US account and start a new EU account so I could play in the actual region that I was in. And, famously, you can't take anything with you when you do that. It's a complete fresh start. You start absolutely from scratch. You can't transfer a character. You can't, transfer progress or gold or anything like that. So with 0 achievements and 0 anything else, I had to start this new character. Now, you did get a boost when you bought Warlords of Draenor, so I used that. And I went straight to max level, but I was still in a situation where I had no guild or anything like that. And that's when I first started actually kind of looking for a guild seriously to raid with. And I didn't actually find it until Hellfire, actually. Until Hellfire was out. That's when I first started raiding properly. And again, I can't remember the name of the first guild that I joined, because like you say, it's so difficult to find a guild where everyone is on the same page and that you're doing the thing that you want to be doing, and with people that you like and that you enjoy doing it with. And that's why my main advice to any WoW player, the best advice you can ever take as a WoW player, I think, is to get a nice guild who you like and who you're on the same page as. And these guys, they were okay. They were like super casual and they were fun, and I liked the raid leader. And we were going in, and there was different people there every week, and every raid, I should say. And we went in, and we like Hellfire was out, but we were just finishing off Blackrock Foundry. We were doing the previous raid, and we were going through that, and it was quite nice to be in that raiding environment, but it was really loose. And the other problem we had was we had 2 discipline priests, and back in WoD, that was bad, because when you put your shield on someone, it was still completely based on absorbs at that point. But when you put a shield on someone, they got weakened soul, which was raid wide. So no other disc priest could put a shield on them for 12 seconds. And when you're putting shields all over the raid, that's a big problem when, as discipline priests, half the buttons you're pressing are having no effect, and your spell isn't even getting cast, but you don't know a lot of the time. And so there was no, like, you just wouldn't have 2 disc priests in a raid in WoD. It was something that didn't happen. And so if we had to, which didn't always happen, but if we had to, then one of us would have to go holy. And I hated holy. I hated it so much. So even though I got on with these guys, I used to, one time too many, I got asked to go holy. And I was like, dude, we were doing that boss in Hellfire Citadel, which had like, it was like bright orange one side of the room, and it was bright purple one side of the room, and it's bright green the other side of the room, and you had to take into like different bits, and like different like things would happen depending on which side of which color slime you went to. I can't remember the names now. But he was the neon slime disco boss. And they were just like, "Oh, Myth, can you go holy?" And I didn't even answer. I just G quit.
Really?
I was on
That's
comms.
how you left.
Yeah,
That's how you
like, and the guy was like, "Oh, Myth, mate. Our other disc priest has turned. Can you go holy, mate? Can you go holy?" And I just went, and I was gone. I was out of there.
You let me sit here
G-quit.
and tell my G-quit story, knowing full well that you just had like a bombshell of a dramatic G-quit.
And I left comms, and like I got whispers from the guy who was like, "Oh, Myth, please come back, which I enjoyed thoroughly, because that's what you want when you G-quit. You don't want it to go unmentioned, do you? If you're going to G-quit in the middle of the raid, you don't want to not hear from anyone. You want people coming into your whispers going, "Oh, Myth, mate, come back, mate, come back." So yeah, and that's what happened. I felt awesome about it, and I was just like, "Nah, mate."
God.
And I like, dude, in fact, it wasn't like, we weren't a progression. We weren't a progression.
No, don't you dare walk this back. This is amazing.
It was super casual.
Do
I
not
can't remember the names
quantify
of anyone in that guild. The last time I actually checked on them, on their Discord, like a couple of years ago, the guild was completely dead. There's like 2 people in it. Everyone else had gone horde. So, I mean,
good. That's where they should.
I think the guild message was even everyone went horde, lol. Presumably they're going to take their raiding a whole lot more serious from now on. I don't know. Maybe that was the thing. Maybe that's the thing that sort of encouraged them to do that. But that was my that's when I was like in the market for a guild, because I'd already G-quit a guild, and their slow progress was really annoying me anyway. That's when I first noticed that, I wanted a guild that took raiding a bit more seriously than, because you do it in steps. You see, this is the thing that sort of people that have been raiding forever kind of forget when they talk about how LFR kills the game or whatever. For most players who are new to this sort of thing, and everyone is at some point, You don't jump into a raiding guild unless you have friends and stuff who are already there. If, like me, you started playing this game and none of my friends were playing this game, it was completely just me. Like, you take these things in steps and little incremental like progressions, you know. So you got to max level after 3 expansions, and then you started playing with your girlfriend. So that's the first time you ever started playing with another person regularly. And then you go into LFR, and then that gives you the confidence to go into like a super casual kind of, oh, come along to raid if you fancy it on this night and this night. And G quit in the middle of the raid because you've been asked to play Holy, and that's fine. And from there, then finally, after and that's after the 3 a.m. US guild. So like every time it got a little bit more serious. And after, you know, in my 4th incarnation as a WoW raider, I was finally ready to actually genuinely join a heroic guild, you know, and actually get this stuff done properly. And that's when I started taking my search for a guild a little bit more seriously. So if you had to find a guild right now to join for raiding out of nowhere, what would be your process, Garrett? How would you go about it? I mean, you'd ask me, obviously, and I'd just let you in my guild, even though I have no power or influence in my guild. I'd be like, I'll see what I can do.
I would, on a podcast, say, yo, I would like to raid.
Yeah. I guess so. But imagine that you don't have lots of friends in the game, and imagine that you're not a world-famous podcaster on the best WoW podcast in the world, and the instance as well.
Oh man! Oh, Scott Johnson just like felt a disturbance in the force. He just went, "Oh!" That's what he just did. And Patrick's gonna tell him, because I think Patrick listens to this show.
Patrick doesn't listen to this show. Don't be silly.
Hi, Patrick.
I know when Patrick listens to a podcast, he plays it at like triple speed, and I talk far too quickly to be understood at triple speed, so he won't understand a thing that's going on.
I can't do it. I don't know how anyone does that. And frequently at BlizzCon, I meet people who are like, "You sound stoned in real life because you're talking so much slower." I'm like, no, I sound normal because you're speeding my voice up. What are you doing? Sorry. Sidebar. Honestly, right now, I'd probably try that new tool that they just recently added to the game to find guilds and groups. But I haven't used it because of Taliesin. We're like the 1% of social engineering in World of Warcraft because we have platforms to ask for things. I honestly don't know what I would do, because even back in the day,
well, I know because I've been there. You know, I had no platform. I had nothing. I didn't have the channel or anything like that. And what I did was this. I went onto WoW Progress, and I looked at Alliance guilds on WoW Progress on my server, which was Argent Dawn EU, and still is, because I wanted to be on an RP server because I thought it would like bring life to the game around me, and it does. It's brilliant. I highly recommend being on an RP server for anyone choosing a new server. Go RP. It's brilliant because when you're walking around like Stormwind or Orgrimmar, people are doing RP. It's amazing. One of the best things that ever happened in WoW was one day in the build up to BFA, and I think it was in the BFA pre-patch, so just after the War of Thorns or when that was happening or whatever. I logged into Orgrimmar one day, and I just happened to like spawn by the war chief's hut in Orgrimmar, and there was a huge crowd of players outside it. Like just outside of the throne room, and someone was giving a speech about how Sylvanas was like our dear leader who must be followed, and whatever you've heard about the War of Thorns and stuff, just ignore that and keep going. And while that was happening, some people were kind of talking to each other, saying how they didn't trust Sylvanas and things. And then there were like guards, there were like Forsaken characters walking around, just like intimidating people who were there. It's one of the best things I've ever seen.
That's incredible.
It was brilliant, and you could get involved in it if you wanted, and you didn't have to. But just randomly spawning into the middle of it, I was like, this is amazing. Thank goodness for RP servers. So I've never regretted that decision. But what I did was I went onto WoW Progress and I looked at guilds who were progressing Hellfire, and obviously, I completely ignored all the mythic ones who had mythic progress. I was like, okay. So what I did was I went to ones that were doing normal progression because I didn't want to run before I could walk. And I kind of, you know, when you go to a restaurant, okay, and you look at the wine list, and obviously you're not going to buy one of the really expensive bottles of wine because you're not an idiot. But at the same time, you don't want to like buy the cheapest one because then you'd look like a scrub. So you always buy like the second cheapest bottle of wine in a restaurant. And that's what I do. And restaurants know you do this, which is why the cheapest bottle of wine for them is always actually the second cheapest on the menu. It's because they know that everyone buys the second cheapest bottle of wine because no one buys the cheapest one. You can buy the second cheapest one.
Well, that's
always the house.
At some point, I need to preach to you the virtues of having no shame, because I definitely buy the cheapest bottle of wine anywhere I go.
I took the same tactic. I took the same tactic with choosing my guilds to apply for. I went onto WoW Progress. I found like guilds that were progressing normal, and you know I didn't go for the most scrubby ones, but I went for ones just a little step up from that. Yeah. Who had like a couple of bosses down in normal progress.
Is this how you found Immortalis?
Specifically for priests. And I applied to a few guilds. And, you know, from then I checked out their websites and I would not apply to a guild that didn't have a website. Like websites are very important. My guild's website is down at the moment and I'm like very angry about it. I'm like genuinely causing shit in my guild about the fact that our website's down. But because it's really important, it's super important. And I check out their websites, and then the ones with the best websites and the most interesting applications. Because again, I wouldn't really trust a guild that didn't have a proper application process where you had to fill in the formal stuff. Because you know, I think that's quite important. And I applied to about 3 guilds, and the first one to get back in contact with me was Immortalis, which also had the most in-depth form to fill out as well. And their healing lead, a really nice lady called Panda Cho, I think, got in contact with me and was like, yeah, we really need a discipline priest. It turned out that the reason they needed a discipline priest was because they had one at the start of Hellfire Citadel, but their discipline priest, a guy who now I know very, very well called Sem, who's like a really good friend of mine, he was in a motorbike crash and broke his hands. And he couldn't raid because he had broken hands. And he was their discipline priest. So they were desperate for another discipline priest because, again, it was a really good class to have in raids at the time. And they had 0 discipline priests. So that got me in. And the fact that I could talk relatively knowledgeably in the form helped me as well. And I said I had raiding experience, which I didn't really. And I got taken on trial. And they were, bless them, they were clearly so desperate for a discipline priest that I passed my trial, even though I was terrible. And that's what taught me to be like a decent, proper raider then. And that was very much my very first raiding experience was raiding with Immortalis.
So based on your tweet, my question is, how desperate are you for a tank right now?
Desperate enough to have a child, Garrett.
That's wild. That's really cool. I was curious if that was gonna turn into the story about how you found Immortalis, and clearly it was. Yeah. Now that you've asked, how would I go about finding a new guild or a new raid group or a new guild? Like, I think I think my complete ignorance to how to go about that in 2020 is at like the same level as a married man. Like, how would I find a new relationship in my 30s? I do not know. This is actually something Katie and I joke about all the time. We're like, do you understand how Tinder works? No. And we bat around like, what do people do? What do you do if you're not in school? And that's how I feel about finding a guild in World of Warcraft. I'm like, if I don't, because how I always found my guilds has always been just through a friend. I just found a guild through a friend. And it's like, if I didn't have a friend who was like, hey, come join my guild, we'll have a good time, let's go raiding, I wouldn't find the guild. I'll tell you how I definitely don't find a guild. And it's from people whispering me randomly when I'm not in one. Does that work? Do you actually build meaningful online friendships? Maybe.
Well, also maybe there was a reason for that back in Kata, when just literally having more people in your guild meant more gold going into the bank automatically. It was like it was a thing that happened automatically in game. Like when you looted gold in the game, your guild got gold extra gold deposited in their bank back in Qatar. So that there's a reason for cesspool guilds to exist then. There's a reason for a guild to just want as many members as possible, and that was cool. It was just good for the person that ran the guild. But I don't see why that happens anymore. And it happens to me as well. Of course, every time I start leveling a new character, I get whispers instantly asking me to join guilds that are automated and stuff. And I don't know why that happens anymore. Which is really weird.
Yeah.
But for the first time ever when I was in Immortalis, it felt like, well, a proper established organization that I was in, because the website, Immortalis are quite an old guild over various servers. They've been going for a long time. They had a history, and they had like a lot of history on their forum pages, and like some people had drawn cartoons of their history and stuff like that. And that was really interesting to be a part of, because I love stuff like that. And you know, and as far as raiding went, it felt incredibly legit. They had a healing lead who we'd have meetings with before raids in comms, and we'd have our raid leader, who was also the guild leader, guy called Zell. You know, took time to kind of take you into little private chats and talk to you about strategy and what you'd be doing in the raid and what you need to be doing to be raid ready. And like normal wasn't the cakewalk that it is now. Like normal is still easy, but both normal and heroic were more difficult than they are now. Both difficulties have got easier since Hellfire, and not just because I've got better either. And, you know, we took that very seriously, and we had a healer chat, and you had to like organize cooldowns and stuff, because otherwise we wouldn't beat the bosses. And it was really interesting. It was the first time I'd ever had like proper tactics talks in raids. And we went through Hellfire and did it in normal really, really quickly. And Archimond in Hellfire Citadel was the first final boss of any raid that I ever beat. That was the first time I ever completed a raid on anything apart from LFR.
Wow.
And so that was like a genuine defining moment for me, from like a journey that had started in the first few weeks of Wrath of the Lich King. I felt like I'd finally arrived and I was playing the game properly, because I completed a normal raid for the first time ever in Hellfire Citadel. It was still current content, and I was like, yeah, awesome. Cool.
So this is good.
And I felt like I'd done my part. You know, I was part of a proper guild. I stepped up. I did it. I wasn't the best healer there by any means, but it was like genuinely fun to be a part of. And then we went through it in heroic and did the same thing, which was a noticeable step up. And you know, for the first time, I was getting like transmog sets and like tier sets, and you know, getting my 4-piece and stuff. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is what it's all about. And to do it in heroic, I mean, because that took weeks. That took about 3 or 4 sessions of just being on Archimond for us to defeat on heroic. And I felt like the bee's knees after doing that. And especially because a couple of weeks after that, they introduced the friendship moose, the mount for Curve. You remember the flying moose, the first moose mount they had?
Yeah.
The Grove Warden. And they introduced that for getting Curve. And we'd already got Curve a few weeks before, and we kind of stopped. But we had to go back in and get it again. And all of this. And it was just, it was amazing. And it was so good. And I felt like a proper WoW player for the first time ever. I had Curve, man. How cool is that? I felt so good. And I mean, honestly, it was probably that feeling of feeling like a proper WoW player for the first time that helped me decide to start the channel and to start making content on WoW and things like that. Because for the first time ever, I could talk with some vague knowledge of the game. I didn't feel like a complete fraud.
Are you saying knowledge is power to create content?
Yeah, yeah. So it was like that was already important to me, and it felt great, and it felt awesome, and you know, it was only later that I realized that there were some big cliques in that guild. At the time, I'm still in that guild, but but the guild's gone under a lot of changes since then, because one day I logged on and the healing lead Panda had just gone. Oh, wow. All the healers had an in-game mail saying, "I'm gone, and it wasn't my choice, and I'm sorry." I was like, oh, damn, I really like Panda. She was cool. And then, you know, with a guild that old and people that had been in that guild for so long, you know, it was a major thing. And then I started realizing that there was a little bit of, among some of the raid team, there's a little bit of kind of tension towards the raid leader, because it turns out a lot of the tactics we did were very unconventional. And our raid leaders used to take pride in doing his own tactics, which I really admired and which I thought was really, really good, but did frustrate some members of the team because they watched the videos that we'd been made to watch by our raid leader.
That's not cool.
He was one of those raid leaders that would stop the raid when we got to a new boss for 10 minutes while we went away and watched the videos. And then came back. And
then didn't execute the tactics for the video.
Yes, exactly. And so some people find that quite frustrating. It's like, well, dude, one or the other. Or the other.
Not cool.
But that all came to a head in Legion. Because this is my big raid story. Because I was a proper raider by then. And when Legion started, like I was in the team, you know, we were leveling together. We were running Mythic Plus for the first time because that was a new thing in Legion, loving that. And, you know, when you're suddenly raiding, when you spend the entire game like not raiding, and then you're suddenly in a raid team and you're raiding, like everything in the game takes on a new purpose, you know, because you've got a reason to be getting gear, you've got a reason to be running Mythic Plus, and it's all with completing the raid with your team later on in mind. And that's why when a new patch goes live now, like my favorite time to play WoW is the weeks between a big patch going live and completing the raid. Because everything you do just has more purpose, you know. Every bit of gear you get is to help you beat that raid, like you know, and it's just there's a reason for doing everything. So I was running Ravenholt Manor, not Ravenholt Manor. What was the one that the dungeon in Legion, which was Ravenholt Manor, but not Raven's Crest
yes.
Manor. I was running that like 8 times a day because I wanted my 7th spine trinket because mana control was so bad on discipline priests that every discipline, like it was mandatory for a discipline priest to have this trinket. It's the first time I'd ever gone hunting for a certain piece of gear that I needed to help me with my raid progress, like outside of raid. And I was like, yeah, this feels great. So I was happy to do it. And I did eventually get, and like discipline priest was such a mess at the beginning of Legion, and I was bottom of the meters by miles. And my raid leader was like giving me, not giving me shit because that sounds like he was being nasty, but he wasn't. Like he was clearly very concerned about me, and wasn't putting me in any of like the healing rotations and stuff like that. And if there's one class that needed to be in healing rotations at the time and have a set time when you did your healing, it was discipline priest because they had one big heal, like one big thing they could do like every 2 minutes with their Light's Wrath, and that was it. And they could heal like the entire raid from almost nothing to full again, but they needed 15 seconds of prep time during which they couldn't move, and they needed to be able to stand there and get that cast off. And if anyone sniped them, like it was useless, and they were done for another 2 minutes. So you could make it work, but it needed a lot of planning, and that was not something that because we had no. That's not something that our raid lead or our new heal lead really gave much thought to. They clearly didn't really understand like the difficulties that Disc were going through at the beginning of Legion, because no one knew how to play it to its optimum in the first patch of Legion. It was like that's when they changed it to the whole doing damage to heal thing, and it was difficult. It was difficult to get your head around, and still is for a lot of people, even though it's much easier to play now. So we went through Emerald Nightmare, and it was a chore, like a huge chore getting through normal and heroic Emerald Nightmare, like so difficult. And our raid leader got in the habit of benching people. If he got to a boss that wasn't going well, or sometimes if it was going well, or sometimes before we got to the boss, he would sit people out, which was new to me. And I was very lucky. I never got set out. Like I don't think we had enough healers, so I was never really set out.
But dust your shoulders off there, Taliesin.
Sorry?
I said just dust your shoulders off with that humble brag there.
No, they just desperately needed me. Any heals at all. So they kept me in. But you know, like some people wouldn't be doing the mechanics right or whatever, and they'd get benched. Or maybe their DPS was too low and they get benched. And for me, that always seems really weird. It's the way that scaling works in raiding. Obviously, you know, it has little thresholds. So for me, the idea that we need more DPS, therefore let's bench some DPS, seems incredibly counterintuitive and weird. And that's not a raider's fault. That's not the raid leader's fault. That's the way the game works. And that's the way the scaling works. You know, the idea that if you've got like 25 people in a raid, that hits a threshold. So by taking away 1 DPS, yeah, you're technically net doing less DPS, but the boss's health has gone down by such an amount that it works out that proportionately you're doing more DPS.
Yeah, it's a sliding scale.
Felt satisfying to me.
Yeah.
The idea, like, I get it. I get how it works. I'm not confused about it. But the idea that you would take away a DPS player from a raid to increase your DPS has always felt very counterintuitive to me.
Yes. And that, to a certain degree, feels like you should never have gotten to that point to begin with. Like, if you're already aware of that, why are you bringing that many players to begin with just to hurt feelings when people get benched?
There's the argument that, I mean, normal and heroic were both quite easy in Legion as well. That's when it reached its kind of current level of difficulty, which was considerably easier, I think, than in WoD and Mists. But so we got through Emerald Nightmare, and it was tough. And I remember I was working as you know how you got in trouble at your work for kind of never working Fridays. Well, this is the first time in my work that I'd had like a regular raid schedule, and I was working as a tour guide at the time, so I could kind of, you know, have a lot of flexibilities with my hours as a tour guide around London. But I used to always like insist on having Tuesday and Thursday and Sunday evenings clear. And, you know, I'm working in London, it takes you an hour to get anywhere. So I had to finish work at, you know, 5 at the latest if I was going to get home for raid. And so that caused a lot of trouble at my work. So that's why I had to become a famous YouTuber in the end, just to make my raid schedule work, you know. And also the channel was happening at that point as well, and like wasn't big or anything, but was getting a little bit more well known. So people were aware of the channel in the guild and stuff, and it was a bit of a joke and things like that. And I think maybe, and I was purposely never made a thing of it at all. And because of that, I actually got quieter and quieter and less demanding and less vocal and less. I contributed a lot less in TeamSpeak or Ventrilo. I think we were still using them.
Yeah. I get that. I've had
because I didn't want to
since last week. I've had a lot of people offer. They're like, "Hey, come join our raid team," and I'm just like, I want to make sure that I can not be a burden.
Totally. And the last thing I wanted to do was look like I thought I knew anything just because I had a YouTube channel, you know. And I certainly didn't want to encroach on the raid leader doing his thing, and so I was always super aware of that. And that's probably why I wasn't as forthright as I should have been about, no, dude, this is how disc works. I'm taking this like big bit of damage. No one else touches it. Everyone else saves their cooldowns for like the other bit that I can't do. And that's how we make disc work in this raid. And that's what I should have done, but I didn't. So that's my fault. So we got to Emerald Nightmare, and disc was slightly improved in Emerald Nightmare, but the big changes that actually made it a viable spec in 7.2 hadn't come yet. And I was getting a bit annoyed, and I was getting annoyed with the and I wasn't alone, but I was getting annoyed with the raid leader's habit of benching people. Because I knew how hard I'd worked to get time off to get home and raid. And I assumed that the people he was benching had as well. So I started to think, and I really liked everyone in the guild. That was the thing. I really loved everyone on chat. And we had this beautiful, amazing Danish couple who used to play together. And like they're some of my best friends now, man. Like the thing is, my guild would go on holiday and stuff now, and like, you know, hang out together in real life all the time. We didn't at that point, but we were all just starting to become friends in a big way at that stage. And this amazing Danish couple, and the guy was a Mistweaver monk who was always our top healer, and the girl was a boomkin and didn't do a lot of damage. And he used to bench her all the time. Sometimes before we even tried a new boss, which I felt was crazy. He'd be like, okay, we're going to need DPS on this boss, so you're not coming along for it. On this normal boss. And it would be like, I knew that they played in the same room. So I knew that she would like sit there having just been benched, watching him raid in the hope that someone would drop out so she could come back to the raid. And that's when, I don't know if you've ever had this in any of your raid groups, that's when the secret chat started.
Oh,
have you ever had a secret chat?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what was the form that your secret chat took?
Well, that was with the keyboard turner. That's how I found out. Like, so many people were just like, if this person wasn't here, we would have cleared this raid already. and yeah, that's when it came. Like, when I was just like, can we, on this raid group, can we make a call to remove someone and bring someone else in? And was told no. And I was like, I'm done being a babysitter, and went horde.
Wow.
Also just had out of game chats about, oh, this Raider is kind of a jackass, huh? Yeah, they kind of are. They kind of are. But that's later, and those didn't last very long.
Well, that's when our secret chat started, which still persists to this day, by the way. I still don't.
But it's not that secret if you're outing it now.
Influence in my guild, like just because I'm on the best WoW podcast in the world with you, doesn't, I still have no power or influence in my guild. So, this is the secret chat that started in Emerald Nightmare and still persists to this day for a select handful of people, which the raid leadership still don't know about. And we're in there. And, since then, some of the people in the secret chat have been promoted to officer. So we have our tendrils into the leadership now as well. But it's there. And it developed basically. So people who were getting benched could be like, what the F? What's going on? This is crazy. And we would just vent. And Evertel used to sit, I used to raid in the living room still, because at that point in our new flat, and Evertel used to sit there, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'd be getting so angry with these people getting benched, because there was just no need. Because what would happen, in my mind, would be these people would get benched if they weren't doing maybe, say, for example, a strat right. And then all that meant was only half the raid team knew the strat and got a chance to practice the strat. So when they came back into it, we had to do it all over again. And I was like, dude, it's normal. Just let everyone practice the strat. It's absolutely fine. It's cool. And I was like increasing in the meters as I was, because getting angry at other people getting benched made me more vocal in general. So I was starting to insist on being given healing cooldowns to take control of. So actually suddenly, and we were doing the boss, the gardening guy in Emerald Nightmare, which I still think is one of the best raids ever, by the way. I think Surima. So we were doing Surima, and we were doing the botanist guy in Surima. And I was starting to become one of the better healers in the raid again by just being more vocal and insisting on doing stuff and going right up in the meters. And that was a very good fight for Disc anyway. And we really struggled in it for weeks, that fight. We were probably on heroic by that stage. And, so I actually felt more confident to kind of give my opinion and stuff as well. And I was getting really annoyed with people getting benched in this way. And I didn't think it was helpful for the raid either. And then when we eventually got botanist down and we went on to Alisand, we had about half an hour of raid time left. And we got to Alisand, and our raid leader said, well, this is not a DPS check. This is just about mechanics, and it's just about the dance, just about the avoiding the orbs when they come out. That's all this fight is about. So don't even think about your DPS. Just concentrate on getting these orb dances down. And so that's what we did for the first 3 pulls. And on the first pull, I died to an orb. And on the second pull, I died to an orb. As did, most other people in the raid. On the third pull, I did not die to an orb. And I thought, excellent, making progress. Just as the raid leader said, this is what we're doing. There's only half an hour of raid time. This is the whole point. Excellent. And then there's a little bit of silence on comms. And the raid leader came back and was like, okay, so we haven't quite got the DPS for this fight. And he benched half the raid with half an hour of the raid night left, and when we'd been told not to even think about our DPS and just to focus on the dance, and that time, Garrett, I was one of the benched. And that's when I got really annoyed. Well, because I was like, look, I don't see how this, and obviously in the secret chat, stuff was going wild. We were like, what is he doing? What is this? What's going on? In the way that only people that have just been freshly benched could possibly be that self-righteous. And like, probably in hindsight, very unfair, but everyone was like, this is right. Vive la revolution. Get the guillotines out. Let's burn this place to the ground. This is going down. It's all fun and games till my ass hits the bench. And now it's getting serious. Now we have to do something about it. Now we have to overthrow this despot. Now this is it. This is the. Do you know what? I was fine. I was angry about it, but I could live with it. Now this shit has touched me. You know, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak up because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the academics, and I did not speak up because I was not an academic. And then they came for the Jews, Garrett, and I did not speak up. Oh, and then they came for me. And there was no one left to speak for me.
There's some.
That's when I got really angry.
There's some
and also
dark historical implications to this analogy.
Now, it might sound like I've just compared my old raid leader to a Nazi. I want to make it very clear that's not what I've done. I just quoted a famous poem. That's all. Just quoted a famous poem, Garrett, because it kind of matched up with my experience. That's all. That's all I did. Okay.
I mean, that's definitely what you did, but we can move on.
It might have. Other people, not me, might have said it in the secret chat. That's all I'm saying. But I did not. I neither agreed nor disagreed with them, and that's very important at the time. So we were all pretty angry in the chat, in our secret chat, and we all stomped off. And they didn't beat Elisan that night, obviously. And then the same people were cut from the beginning of the next raid, but we weren't told, Garrett, until the raid started. So again, I'd broken my ass to get home from work very early, and was then told I was benched. And I was like, threw my headphones down. And Evertel was like, is everything okay? I was like, no, Evertel, it's not okay. I worked hard. There are people that didn't get a tour today because I had to come home and raid. Now it's not they're gonna get no tour, and I'm getting no raid. And then eventually we went in and you know, and then what happened was after half an hour, they once the good people in the raid had got the orb dance down, they let us all back in the raid anyway. But we hadn't practiced the orb dance, so that like we might as well have just been in there from the start. Anyway, so after that raid night, and we didn't get anywhere near beating Elisan that night, but after that raid night, I was like, I don't think I can go on in this guild as a raider. And I was like, I can't go on like this. This is just stupid. It's making me too angry. I'm not enjoying raid. I'm not enjoying the way it works. I'm just not enjoying the game because of it. So I'm going to have to go and like find someone else to raid with, which is a shame because I really love like all the people in the guild at that time were just fantastic and brilliant, and in a way that's just got better and better since. And I was like, okay, so talking earlier about how because of the channel had made me very aware, you know, about my position in the guild, and as such, I've been very conscious of not being a dick and not giving my opinion on stuff and not trying to make it look like I was trying to influence anything that happened in the guild, because I was quite aware that because of the channel and stuff, it could be seen that way if I was vocal about anything. So I just generally kept quiet. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to leave the guild, I don't want it to kind of look like an ultimatum or anything. I don't want it to be like, if you don't change, I will leave. So instead, I'm just going to leave, you know? And so I waited until the middle of the night, and I wrote a very long email to the raid leader and guild leader, who was the same person. And it wasn't a shitty email. It wasn't a nasty email, but it was just like, I'm leaving the raid team just because I want to raid and I don't like the way it's working in the guild at the moment. I don't like benching people for no reason. And I just don't think I can, that's just not how I want to raid. That's just not how I want to do it. So thank you for everything you've done for me. I think you're a really cool guy. And thank you for helping me. And I'm in a much better position to raid somewhere else now because of my experience here. Something like that. And I sent it to him, and I quit the guild in the middle of the night again. So it wasn't like a big deal. You know, because what I didn't want was everyone to be sitting there and then it say Mivamwe has left the guild, and then it cause a ruckus. When I left in the middle of raid in my previous guild, I wanted to cause a ruckus, and I specifically didn't want to this time. So I wait until the middle of the night and I G quit. And one of the things I said in the letter was, I love the guild, and obviously I'm going to take my main out of the raid team now to go and raid somewhere else. But I have alts in the guild, and like I would consider many people here my friend, and I'd really love it if I could keep the alts in the guild to obviously stay in guild chat and chat with my buddies and you and keep up to date with stuff that's happening in this guild, because I feel like a great affinity to it. You know, it's my home. Thinking that would be no problem. And then when I left in the middle of the night and I woke up the next morning, all my alts had been G-kicked. Like, I had no presence in that guild anymore at all. They'd all been G-kicked by the guild leader. And I was like, okay, fine. I think that's a bit shitty, but whatever. Okay, cool. That's how they wanted to do it. That's how they wanted to do it. It's a shame. I'll miss the people in the guild, but such is life. And that was it for a couple of days. You know, I'm not sure if I even logged in for a couple of days. And then I was like, I felt really down after leaving this guild, which I really loved. And I felt really sad about it. And then I came back a couple of days later and I got a whisper from, the healing lead, actually, I think at the time, Kaz, who was like, you should come back to the guild. And I was like, no, Kaz, no. That's why I left in the middle of the night. That's why I sent the email, was so this didn't happen. You can't come. Don't ask me to come back to the guild. It's not going to happen. We just have differences in raiding. I would like to have kept my alts there, but no, I didn't want to cause a big fuss. And I don't want a big fuss now. Like, let's just be battle tag friends and we can chat and it'll be really nice. And she was like, oh no, it's because the guild leader left the guild after you left. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, your email apparently really upset him. And he wrote a really long forum post on the guild forums where he called you a dick and a terrible raider, and then quit. Oh no. Ooh. And then we like under guild rules, we had to get rid of him. And he knew that. So it was the same as him quitting.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. So you're telling me it was a shit show?
It totally was. And like for 2 days, I had been blissfully unaware that this guild had been burning to the ground. The raid leader, who was a lovely, lovely guy and who I maintain to this day. And I remember emailing him after all of this happened. And I remember saying to Kaz at the time, because she was like, so he's not here anymore. You should come back. And I was like, honestly, I think it would be better for you if you convinced him to come back rather than me. Like, he has been in this guild from the very beginning. He's been raid leading and guild leading for a while. He had stepped down as guild leader. Someone's pointing out in the chat. Sorry, yeah, you're right. He had stepped down as guild leader a couple of months before that. But before that, he was just raid leading at that point. But before that, he had been guild leader for years. But he was like slowly falling out of love with the guild, with the game, not the guild by any means. And getting more frustrated with it. People weren't running high Mythic Plus keys, which was frustrating him, apparently, as something he mentioned in his big forum post. And I was like, no. I think, obviously, like, he is the proper member of this guild. He's the one that should come back, not me. So thank you, but get him back instead. And she was like, no, he's not coming back. He's he's kind of purposely burnt his bridges a little bit. Which I felt was really, really sad. And I remember sending him an email then that night saying, listen, dude, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I didn't mean to like trigger you. And I'd been allowed to read the forum post at that point, and it was pretty nasty to me, like personally in particular. And I was like, look, no hard feelings, dude. I think you should go back to the guild. I think you should come back. Because by then I'd said, okay, well, and I got so many messages from people in the guild asking me to come back that I was like, okay, well, yeah, I am really sad not being in the guild, so I will come back. But I was like, I did my best to try and get the raid leader back as well. And I was like, look, I'm really sorry. This is not my intention at all. In fact, everything I did to specifically try and avoid this happening. Like the way I left and the way that I wrote to you when I did, like was designed to cause as little drama as possible. Like, and I'm sorry that clearly hasn't happened. And I did lose all guild rep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I did have to start building my guild rep again. But he was done. He just didn't want to come back at all. So, and I understand that he still chats to some people in the guild. And our new raid leader, who we appointed after that, apparently he did watch the stream and help him as he was getting into kind of raid leading and stuff like that. So it was all like a really sad, horrible situation, really. And maybe even sadder was that raiding got so much more fun afterwards. Well, we had a sit down. And this isn't personal. This was because like the guild stepped up and did something that we as a guild hadn't done before. And we kind of set down a manifesto for why we were even raiding in the first place, which we hadn't done before. And like that's what caused a lot of the tension, was that a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of people weren't on the same page. And like a lot of people wanted different stuff from what we were doing.
Shared expectations is
exactly. So
important.
for the first time, we shared those expectations and we got them down. And we were like, look, we're a heroic guild. It's pointless benching people for no reason. So the understanding is if you are invited to a raid night, you will raid. And only in the most extreme circumstances will people be benched for tactical reasons, you know? Oh, your camera's disappeared. Are you still there? It doesn't really matter, Garrett, because I can keep on talking forever.
Yeah, we'll just switch to my Logitech.
And we set all that down, and we had a new raid leader who was kind of finding his way at the same time that we were. And so when we beat Elisand and then went on to beat Gul'dan on Heroic with the new raid leader, it felt like this massive achievement for the entire raid when we got Curve that time. It was like really important as a kind of a team building thing. And yeah, we went into Tomb of Sargeras in the same way, and it was just like, and also Discipline Priest got much better in Tomb of Sargeras as well, so I was enjoying myself more too. But generally, the vibe of the raiding changed a lot after that, and that's not the old raid leader's fault. That was our fault as a guild for not having all agreed on our expectations before starting, I think, and doing that has really helped us going forward. And now, like, we're more social than ever. Like I say, we go on holiday twice a year. We have meetups kind of in London and various other places. Like, now I would consider them not just online friends. I consider them like my best friends. You know, some of them came to my wedding. Like, there's some that I play D&D with in person sort of every other week. It's great. It's like a really beautiful sort of thing that exists now. And it's a shame that there had to be some drama that happened to make that happen, I guess. But I think we ended up in a good place. And now, if I feel any frustration towards raiding, it's that I would quite like to, after we finish Curve, I'd quite like to go on and tackle Mythic in as casual a way as possible, which is not something that people in my guild really want to do. And I find that a little bit frustrating now. When I'm done with Heroic, I'm like, I still want to be raiding. You know, I've got nothing else to do. This is my job. So like I've got the time to put into it and I really want to do it. So that's the only kind of angsty thing I'm feeling at the moment, is feeling like I could be doing a bit more. But that's a pretty nice problem to have, I think. You know, it's a bit more friendly now, I think, and probably a bit more casual as well.
I mean, I hope you're ready for like that, your old raid leader to clearly make another forum post after this has been been aired on a podcast.
Dude, I would, and I say this all the time whenever the topic comes up in guild, because, you know, we still talk about it on meetups and things like that. Because it was kind of like the event that shaped the guild into what it is right now, which I think most people are pretty happy with. But
yeah, I think a lot of guilds go through similar things at some point in their history, and they either change or they implode. Like,
yeah, seriously. I think at least socially, you know, the guild has flourished since then, which is one of the most important things for me personally. But I would welcome the old raid leader back with open arms. I'd love to have him back. He's a really funny guy. He had the best puns, man. He was cool. Like, he was a really good guy to have around. And I think he literally just fell out of love with the game. I don't think he plays anymore. I don't think it's because of that. You know, So I can understand that he said,
I want to tease you so bad. I just want to be like,
Nothing
whatever helps you
means
sleep at night,
nothing.
Taliesin. This guy clearly quit playing because of you, just you. You've ruined this person's life.
"Vive la revolution, Garrett!
You
Get the guillotines out!"
You started a coup. That's what you did, Taliesin. You successfully pulled off a coup for a World of Warcraft guild. Man, this is why
It was an accidental coup, though, Garrett. I want to make that very clear, because I know that there are people in my guild in this chat right now. And, it was an accidental coup. It was purely accidental. And I did everything I could to try and avoid that drama. Like, what would you have done differently? How would you have avoided that drama? Because tell me, because I thought that leaving in the middle of the night and sending an email in that way, I thought that was the best way of doing it. Tell me why I was wrong. Help me out. Tell me what I could have done differently.
You can never like truly anticipate how someone will take anything. So I think this probably would have ended up with you not being invited back to the guild, but probably not sending the email. You probably don't send the note.
Just leave?
Yeah, because that's what I did, and what happened was... But
then you're inviting them to come looking for you, which is a bit self-centered, isn't it? Because they wouldn't, if I just left, that wouldn't have gone unquestioned. They'd be
I just left, and they didn't come looking for me. They didn't.
But they would have come looking for me, and they'd have been like, "Myth, are you coming to raid tonight? I noticed you left the guild. What was that a mistake? Are you still coming? What's going on? I noticed you left the guild in the middle of the night, Myth. What's going on? Are you coming to raid?" And that's for me, that is an attention-seeking thing. Like, if you think they're going to come and ask you why you left the guild, and so you purposely don't tell anyone, but you just leave, that feels attention-seeking to me.
Well, it's not like I
wanted to avoid.
It's not like I didn't tell anybody. Like, my friends in the guild knew why I left.
Right.
And I'm sure relayed that information.
Well, I didn't tell anyone that I was going to leave for the express
purpose. Yeah, but you also had
oh no, we can change things. Don't worry, we can change things. I didn't want that. I didn't want to change anything. I just wanted to not be in the guild.
I would like to make it clear that I don't think that's what you should have done. I just think to change how that went down, I think not sending the note is the way you change how that went down. But like, clearly, it ended well for you and for a lot of people in the guild. It seems like. So I just find this fascinating. And also I'm learning that when Taliesin asks you if you did a certain thing, it's because he did it. Because much earlier in the show, you're like, oh, did you have something to say when you left the guild? Or did you have a dramatic exit? Because you have both told us today that you had a dramatic exit from one guild where you just left when you were asked to go holy. And you also had something to say when you left another, which is your statement, which caused a freaking mutiny.
Well, okay, so I've never wanted to cause a mutiny before, but I've left 2 guilds, on this server, and one of them did cause a mutiny, one of them did. It wasn't really a mutiny. It's more like, it just made someone snap, and that it resulted in a change at the top. But it wasn't really a mutiny. But yeah, I mean, working on that evidence, the least traumatic way to leave a guild is to G-quit without saying anything in the middle of a raid. Which, by the way, also happened in Emerald Nightmare. We had a guy who used to whisper me all the time. He was not a fan of the raid leader. Unjustly, I thought he had but this guy who used to get really annoyed with the tactics, and he G-quit in the middle of a raid. He was just gone. Like, we were talking to him one moment, and the next thing it just said, "Ara has left the guild," and he was gone. And I was like, "Are you all right, mate?" And he was offline. He'd logged off.
See, that's not attention seeking. If you actually just leave and you're not reachable, that's not attention seeking.
And we were like, well, at first we were like, did he just get disconnected? I was like, no, he's just G-quit.
This is why I love World of Warcraft, man. I mean, a lot of games can have this if they live long enough, right? But if you played World of Warcraft across multiple expansions, you have life stories. We all have. Most of us have that story of when we actually walked out on a job. And if you've played World of Warcraft long enough, you probably have that story where you walked out of a guild or a raid team. You get to that point.
Okay, so that guy that G-quit in the middle of the raid, in the middle of Emerald Nightmare, he once the raid leadership changed, about a year later, for BFA, he wanted to come back. And he asked me if he could come back into the team. And I was like, dude, don't ask me. I have no, I have no influence. Like, do your application. And like the officership talked long and hard about whether to let him back into the guild. And eventually he decided not to because he G quit in the middle of a raid. So they were just like, we're actually going to say no. We're not going to take this guy back into the guild. So there you are. If I had done that, maybe I wouldn't have been taken back into the guild. And I'd have lost a lot of friends. So I'm glad I did it the way I did it in hindsight. Thinking about it, now I've talked it through. I'm glad. I just wish that the old raid leader was still in the guild. That's all. If you're listening, Zell, come back, dude. We miss you. We all miss you. Thank you. No, don't laugh. I mean it.
No. I'm laughing.
Don't listen to him, Zell. Don't listen to him laughing. He's just a horrible person. He's not in the guild.
No, I'm not laughing at your plea. I'm laughing at like thinking of your entire story. Like you have been on a wild journey, sir. And
it was intense. It was really intense. And it was a weird time. But I think we came out stronger the other side. And now, of course, and the thing is, because we're not a mythic guild or anything like that, we just do heroic. But we do have a guild name, which is, well, some might say quite unoriginal. It's not an uncommon guild name. It's Immortalis. Now, I love a guild name, which is Latin, Garrett. What's your favorite guild that you've ever been in called? What's your favorite guild name that you've ever had?
My fondest memories were in a guild just called For Horde. Not For the Horde, just For Horde.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, good name.
Yeah. Before that, my alliance guild that I left in a huff was called Secret Agent Clan, which I loved because the acronym was SAC, and I liked saying SAC.
Well, we're called Immortalis, and like we noticed one day that there are a lot of other guilds with the word Immortalis in their name worldwide. So we suddenly decided, without telling anyone else, we decided that and we noticed that they were all heroic guilds as well. They were all about our level. There was no mythic guild called Immortalis. So we noticed that there's one particular guild called Immortalis, a German guild called Est Immortalis. No, sorry, not Est Immortalis. They were like Gloria Immortalis or something. Oh, what are they called? Anyway, they're a German guild. They had Immortalis in their name. And we were like, okay, our goal for this tier is just to beat this guild. Vox Immortalis. Yeah, that's what they're called. Our goal for this tier is we've got to get heroic before Vox Immortalis get it. And we're not going to tell them, but we're going to do it. And we did. And that was our thing. We kept like a look at Vox Immortalis' guild progress on WoW progress. And like every week when we finished raid, we'd go and look at their progress and we'd be like, okay, they pulled ahead of us by a boss this week, guys. We gotta really up our game if we're going to beat Vox Immortalis to this thing. And we did. We beat them. And then I made it a feature on the show on the weekly reset. We had like world first watch for guilds with a name a bit like Immortalis. And that's when we called out Vox Immortalis and we were like, because we had our updates every week and we're like, Vox Immortalis doing really well. We're not doing so well. But eventually, and we had like the guild leader of Vox Immortalis leaving comments on our videos saying, well, we did it like this. You could have just done it like this as well. And we were like, no, curse you, Vox. Stop being so cool about it. And they really took it in their stride and they went with the joke and stuff. Because if they hadn't, we'd have stopped doing it, like obviously on the show. But they really went with the joke. German people, good sense of humor. We were always confident about that. So they really went with it and it was really funny. And we did eventually win that race as well, like on the show. And we were much celebrated for being the best guild in the world with a name a bit like Immortalis. But now, of course, because we did it on the show, we've got copycats. We've got pretenders. We've got people that have gone out and literally renamed their guilds to Immortalis, including the Australian guild, bit like Immortalis. There's now an Est Immortalis. There's now a Taco Immortalis.
Ooh, I like that
There's
one.
lots of Immortalises in this race these days,
like
and it's a lot harder. We
Taco
didn't win last time.
Immortalis is good and makes me hungry for raiding.
So that's where now as a raid guild, that's where we find our challenge now. Not just getting heroic down, but doing it before other Immortalis guilds and, being in the upper rankings of Immortalis guilds. So challenge is what you set yourself, isn't it?
I am currently soul searching to figure out if I want to start raiding on the regular again. And I'm leaning towards yes. Leaning towards yes. Finding the time. Finding the time is the problem.
Yeah. Always.
It's hard wanting to play all the Blizzard games except Overwatch. It's hard. It's hard, Taliesin.
I'm sorry, dude.
Mercifully, mercifully, Diablo.
So when was the
is
last
just
time
not
that you
doing
raided properly in a raid guild?
Legion.
Okay.
Yeah, Legion. I was on Jocelyn, my co-host on the Angry Chicken, raided with her raid team regularly until Breath of Sindragosa became the go-to for Frosty K, and I hated it, and it's still the way to go. It is the worst spec of anything I've ever played in the history of this game, and I cannot believe it's still the thing.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it is trash. It is no fun. And I hated playing my own character. It's the first time I ever stopped raiding because I hated the game.
Wow.
Like
in Legion.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
controversial.
I was really stoked to
just you and Heel versus Babyface did that, Stop playing.
I didn't quit playing the game. I just quit.
That's quite a club. That's quite a club.
I quit playing the. Don't you? Oh, you're gonna get me to.
I'm gonna get you in trouble, aren't I?
You're gonna get me in trouble.
I know what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm doing,
I'm
Garrett.
Deeply offended by that comparison. Yeah, no, I didn't stop playing. I just stopped playing what was my main. In that expansion, I've always, since Lich King, wanted a Death Knight. Obviously, big Arthas fanboy. Why the hell did I wait so long? In Legion, I finally pulled the trigger because you get to make your freaking artifact weapon out of the shards of the broken Frostmourne. How that wouldn't give you a loregasm and not immediately make you want to make a Death Knight? I do not know how. And so that's exactly what I did, and I loved it. I loved it until Breath of Sindragosa.
Hello?
Oh,
sorry. No, I'm
Discord,
good. It
Discord getting weird.
Yeah,
good old Discord.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's and so I just I stopped playing my main, and I didn't have any other characters that were raid worthy, so I was no longer raiding with them on the regular. I believe after Nighthold. No, I started doing Tomb of Sargeras. It was after Tomb of Sargeras. That's when I stopped raiding on the regular, which stunk because that means I didn't clear Argus with the team.
But at least you did Nighthold, which I think was the best raid in.
Yeah, Nighthold was killer. I mean, I enjoyed every raid in Legion. I thought every raid in that expansion was freaking top notch. Probably would put.
So you haven't actually played any of the BFA raids properly.
I've gotten carried through them. I
repeat my previous statement.
Yeah, I've gotten carried through them pretty hard. Every single one of them up until this point, as a matter of fact. I've dabbled back in with my Horde buddies when they've kind of had it on farm and are just like, yeah, sure. They're really locked down now and like they're hardcore going forward, like ahead of the curve, and I'm just not able to make their raid nights. So haven't been doing that. But I've been hanging out with them a little bit, and I hang out with my buddies on the Alliance side as well. Over, if you're familiar with the Starting Zone podcast, my buddy Shieldwald over in his guild Integrity Alliance side, I've been hanging out with them quite a bit as well. They're really, really cool folks. So through legitimate acts of charity, I've seen all of the BFA raids.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what did you think of them? All in all?
I think they're great. Nazjatar, I didn't love the Nazjatar raid all that much. I thought it was a little messy in terms of encounters. They weren't my favorite encounters in the game. I loved the Battle for Dazar'alor.
Yeah, it was good.
I thought that raid was incredible. That had some really good boss fights. And the
Mechatalk fight is still one of the most fun I've ever had in raid. The Mechatalk fight where you send people into robots, and when you get into a robot, you can see the buttons that the person in the other robot has to press, and you have to tell them what buttons they have to press, but they can't see them themselves. So you literally can't do it without comms and without quite good communication around comms. And if you don't do it right, you blow up. And it's really good, and it's really stupid and fun.
A good, this would probably be its own episode. A good, but like the building blocks for a good raid fight. But like for me, if I really remember and love a raid fight, it's like a mix of like the lore setup for where we're fighting and how we're fighting. It has to be good, and the mechanics have to be good. It's like the mix of the two. And for that reason, like Jaina is my favorite boss fight, I think, since Lich King. Like, I love that fight.
It's a great fight. I enjoyed every moment of Desire Law. I thought it was a fantastic raid.
Yeah.
Because it's automatically like one of the best lore raids that there is. Just by the way it's set up, and it's actually like, executed in a really interesting way, with the Horde and Alliance having, different fights and things, and which I thought was fantastic. And then really meaningful fights, which I thought was super interesting. Like just really good. And the Jaina one in particular, and I speak as a big Jaina fanboy who thought I'd have a problem fighting Jaina. But in all my Horde gear, it didn't feel like it was me, so I could just enjoy the fight normally. It was really good.
Yeah.
But no, when we were doing the Mecha Talk fight, we had, I remember thinking at the time how proud I was of the raid team when we were doing Mecha Talk, because there are people in our raid team, like long-time members of the raid team, who I heard their voice for the first time. Having known them for years online, I heard their voice for the first time in that Mecha Talk fight, because people stepped up, man. People who never go on comms because they don't like it, or they're nervous about it, or they have anxiety or whatever. They stepped up because they knew that was the only way that we could do that fight. And I heard their voices for the first time, and it was awesome. And I just felt like incredibly proud of them. And I remember wondering at the time if that would have been possible, kind of in the situation that I just described in the previous story. And I just remember thinking, like, yeah, this is great. We've come a long way here. This is excellent. This is what it should be about. And we've never benched anyone since all of that stuff happened. And sometimes it takes us a bit longer to defeat a raid or to beat a fight, but we do it and we feel awesome about it. And it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, rad. Would you like to take our first ever email and/or question on the history of this podcast? Wondrous.
I insist.
Folks, if you'd like to write in, you can do so at wowkillercast@gmail.com. We've also got a Twitter account at wowkillercast. Everything is wowkillercast. We actually have some synergy here. First up is a question from Twitter. At the Kunka wants to know, what do we think the next novel will be? For my knowledge, it hasn't been announced yet. If you want to add what your favorite novel for WoW has been, that would also be superb. Yes, as long as it doesn't turn into a 2-hour conversation about favorite WoW novels, because that'll be totally an episode at some point.
Yeah. I'm going to have to nope out of this question, Garrett.
You're going to have to nope out of this? Oh, do you know?
I'm going to have to recuse myself.
Oh, somebody knows.
Because not to be a dick, but I actually know. And I also know who's writing it.
Oh, shite.
But one thing I will point out is that apart from the novel, quite apart from that, there is another book that has just kind of been sort of accidentally leaked, that Christy Golden is writing. And it's on Amazon now. You can find it. Wait a minute. Let me get my Twitter up. And this is guaranteed happening. And I can talk about this because it's not me that initially said anything about it. And all we've got is an Amazon listing. Now, where I've got this link somewhere. Here it is. Right. It is called World of Warcraft Exploring Azeroth, the Eastern Kingdoms. There's no picture, there's no art or anything like that, but it is listed as being written by Christy Golden.
Yes, I'm looking at it right now.
I would say that's true. And the preamble is this. For over a quarter of a century, players of Warcraft and World of Warcraft have been treated to a treasure trove of artifacts, gear, weaponry, and trinkets of both awe and amusement. Now, players can get an in-depth look at the items they have collected, and some they may not have yet, with exquisite art, and this is the good bit, and a framing story involving the no-nonsense Matthias Shaw and high-spirited Captain Flynn Fairwind. This book covers the continent of the Eastern Kingdom from Stormwind to Stranglethorn, Plaguelands to Palaces, and all the lands in between. So it's like a collections book. It's an art book, essentially, and like a reference book, but it does have a holding story written by Christy Golden featuring my favorite ship in the entire game, Matthias Shaw and Flynn Fairwind.
I'm about to say
Shorewind.
Yeah, I wouldn't say start building your ships because they're already constructed, but maybe start, hoist the colors.
Yeah. So that's a book that's definitely happening, and I'm always up for any Christie Golden story because she's my favorite of all the WoW novelists.
Agreed. Yeah. My favorite WoW book that I've read, I have not read all of them, is Tides of War. Really enjoyed Tides of War.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I like that one a lot too.
That's because I haven't read Arthas yet. I still haven't read that book.
But genuinely, my favorite one is it was the last one, Before the Storm. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was fantastic.
Did not love that one.
What didn't you like about it, Garrett? And we're not going to get into this loads, but what didn't you like about it?
I'm not sure I can get into it in a short way. But it wasn't my favorite. It was very slow in a way that reminded me of the War Crimes novel, which is also not one of my all-time favorites.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And, well, really, inherently, I just don't like the direction they took Sylvanas, and I think by de facto, I would not enjoy that book. I also, the thing I liked the most about it, which was all the Kelly and Menethil stuff, I feel just was there for no reason. I felt like anyone writing the story for the actual game of BFA didn't know this book existed or forgot that Kalia Menethil was a character.
So my understanding of the way the Kalia Menethil worked in Before the Storm is that it was supposed to be a character, but it was supposed to be like it was supposed to be a nameless character, essentially, that played that role in the book. Like someone from Lordaeron who had a modicum of status within Lordaeron, who was a human, and who then tried to get the Forsaken to kind of run over to the Alliance side and got everyone killed. And my understanding is that it was actually Christie Golden, in writing the novel, who came forward. Because the writers of the novels don't choose the story of the novel. They just write what they're told to write, essentially, and that's why I have such admiration for them, because that's such a tough job. But she came back and she said, I think this should be Kalia Menethil for these reasons. And the story team were like, actually, yeah, that's a really good idea. That's a really good reason. So like Blizz were all happy to bring Kalia Menethil back for Legion and just leave her there in the pre-order hall doing absolutely nothing, which was always my worst fear. And my understanding is that it was Christie Golden that kind of made that character Kalia, which is now why, and that has now given the designers time to, given the story writers a chance to do something with that character in the game. Like that's the reason there's any Kalia story in BFA at all, is because Christie Golden successfully suggested that they make that character Kalia in Before the Storm, when it wasn't supposed to be originally.
The best thing in the book. And then
me too.
I felt like it had no impact on BFA, and that really bummed me out.
Well, that's what I liked about it, because I felt like the big criticism for most other WoW novels, and War Crimes is the big example of this, is that you had no idea why WoD was even happening if you hadn't read War Crimes. Like the last thing you knew, you just beaten Garrosh and arrested him. And the next thing you know, he's in alternate Draenor, and there are Magar orcs coming through the portal.
Yeah.
What? And like the linking to that was in the book. And I felt like Before the Storm did a really difficult thing, which was to tell a story which was impactful and meaningful to the characters involved, but didn't need to be read or understood to understand the story of BFA. And would have been even more so that if it hadn't had Kalia Menethil in it, as was originally planned. And I think that's clearly what they wanted to do. But for me, the super fun stuff was reading about the Forsaken characters in it, because I thought that was, I felt we got a characterization of the Forsaken characters that we'd never seen before, which I really loved. And like my favorite scene in the entire book is one of the earlier scenes where the main Forsaken character in it is sewing arms back onto like the blacksmith, whose arm's just fallen off because he's dead and has been dead for ages, and his arm fell off, obviously. So she's just having to sew one back on, and they're just having a nice little chat. And I love that. We've never seen that with Forsaken characters before, and I loved it. And that's why I really enjoyed it. And I thought all the family stuff in it was really touching. So yeah, without making this the thing that we talk about this episode, that's my fave.
I agree with the Forsaken stuff.
You probably should read Arthas, though. Garrett,
I probably should. I have it. I just haven't read it yet. I probably should. Anyways, but yeah, my favorite is Tides of War, and then we won't speculate on what the next book will be because that will be no fun for you whatsoever.
Oh, you can.
I would assume that's something to do with Sylvanas. I hope
I'm not even saying there's going to be a next book, mate. I've said literally nothing at all. Do you think there'll be one?
Yes.
And what would you say it would be about?
I honestly don't know, other than Sylvanas will be involved somehow, and I probably won't like it.
And on that bombshell, this has been like maybe our longest episode yet, Garrett. I need to go and have a poo.
You need to go and have a poo. Wonderful. Well, yeah. on that bombshell, should we end?
Sorry, someone's just written in the chat, Tally pulling a Johnson, which didn't come out in the chat like I think you planned it, Wargus.
That's an in-joke for the instance.
Oh, okay.
When Scott Johnson teases something, when he announces an announcement, he calls it pulling a Johnson.
Nice.
Yes.
Good work, Scott.
Yes, wonderful. Well, keep writing in, everybody.
If anyone's allowed to pull a Johnson, Scott is.
Keep writing in, everyone. WoWKillerCast@gmail.com. Yeah, that's going to do it for this show. You should go to bit.ly/WoWKillerCast right now and subscribe to the new YouTube channel for the show if you want to watch this in video version. Typically, we've been posting it in portions because long-running videos don't really play well on YouTube. However, this episode will probably just be put up in its entirety because I have no idea where I will split this. So before we go, Taliesin, if folks don't know where to find you, and Evatel, where can they find you?
Taliesin and Evatel. You can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Twitch, and you can find us on Twitter. Do it. Find us or we'll find you.
And then cause a coup and upend
you're
your
not gonna
entire
like that.
guild.
Yeah.
Your entire guild. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter.
Yeah, find us or I'll G-quit in the middle of your raid. See how you like that.
And send a thoughtfully worded letter that will blow everything up. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. Everything this show included can be found over at amove.tv. Go check it out. And if you want to support the show, give it to a friend. Tell a friend to go start listening to WoW Killer. And subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, good luck and have fun.